Well, hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to share with you how to determine your skin type. Now, as a dermatologist, when I hear skin type, what comes to mind for me is actually the Fitzpatrick phototypes. This is something we use in dermatology to classify skin based on its reaction to sunlight. We don't use the standard skin types that you often hear about in marketing, but that's probably why you clicked into this video, because when you go to the store to try and buy skincare products, there are so many products, now more than ever. It seems like every time we blink, there are like 300 more. The way of categorizing skin into these skin types was developed by someone named Helena Rubinstein. And 4 different skin types: oily, dry, combination, and sensitive. It can be helpful in selecting skincare products, but I discourage you from marrying yourself to the skin type system. It doesn't allow for much nuance if you really box yourself into these categories, because a lot of things are going to influence what your skin needs, whether it be your age, your medical history, medications you're taking, changes in climate, changes in the weather, any underlying skin conditions that you have, and what your skincare routine is. Your skin is so dynamic that there's going to be a lot of variation in terms of what your skin might need. Now, that doesn't mean that you need a ton of products to address any subtle variation. On the contrary, those of you who have been watching, you know I'm a huge advocate of just keeping things super simple, but we're also individualized, that falling into one of these categories is really unlikely to be exactly what any one person needs. There's a lot of overlap in these categories too. You know, you can have oily skin and you can be super sensitive. If you have acne, you can be very sensitive and oily. If you have rosacea, you can be very sensitive yet oily. If you've been using too many products but you have a genetic tendency towards oily skin, using too many products in an effort to dry out the sebum can leave you very, very sensitive. So you can see how the system that we all are somewhat familiar with, dry, oily, sensitive combination, it really starts to break down. But that being said, there are some pearls in the skin types, the classic 4 skin types, that I do think are worth visiting, especially if you are new to skincare and you're like, I have no idea where to start. Some people do in fact have oily skin by virtue of their genetics, hormones. Some people have a tendency to have dry skin their entire life. Maybe they have an underlying condition like keratosis pilaris or atopic dermatitis that really makes them prone to dryness. So having some sense of where your skin the majority of the time tends to fall, I really do think can help guide you there. So all of that rambling aside, how exactly do you determine your skin type? Well, there are a few subtle clues that might point you in the right direction to a given skin type. A very simple approach is to just look at your skin. Individuals who tend to fall in the oily category, if you take a look at your skin, you may notice that you have a tendency to have very enlarged pores. This could reflect an underlying genetic tendency to make more oil, because underneath those large pores, maybe you have really large oil glands that make you oilier. Does your face look shiny? Does it feel greasy? Do skincare products, especially moisturizing products, feel oily, greasy, uncomfortable? For the dry category, does your skin look, well, dry? Does it look flaky? Maybe you're noticing some redness, especially on the cheeks. The cheeks are an area that for all of us are more prone to dryness at baseline. And if you have background dry skin, a lot of times you can really see redness coming to the surface with all the blood vessels that course through the cheeks. Does your skin look wrinkled? Do you see very fine wrinkles? That's a clue of dry skin. And does your face feel tight? Tight, dry, fine wrinkles, those are clues that you're in the dry category. Combination skin is one that I find to be the most confusing for myself and for consumers as a whole, because there are a lot of things that can make you a combination of dry and oily, whether it be a background skin condition or just maybe you've been using too many products and you've developed a contact dermatitis in certain locations that's drying out your face, but your background skin is maybe more oily. You get what I'm saying. But people who tend to be more on the combination side of things, they're going to have more of an oily T-zone, but the background of their skin tends to be more matte. Then you have sensitive skin. Now, any skin type can develop sensitivity, but some people are sensitive at baseline and they always will be. Sensitive skin, there are kind of 5 pillars of sensitivity: redness, stinging, burning, itch, hyper irritable skin. And by hyper irritable skin, I mean you put something as bland as a little moisturizer on your face and it feels uncomfortable. You get burning, maybe some redness, tingling, you start to flush. That is a sign of sensitivity. It's really, how your skin feels and responds to things coming in contact with it, including, outside of skincare products. For example, if you come inside and the air conditioning is going, if you're sensitive, your skin may feel a little bit of a sting, react a little bit to that change in temperature. Also, if you're somebody who has very sensitive skin, changes in like laundry detergent can impact your skin more readily. People who tend to have sensitive skin, you may have a background of an underlying skin condition like rosacea or atopic dermatitis, or again, maybe it's secondary to overuse of products. Maybe you have acne and your acne treatments are leaving the skin sensitive. We know that that is a common side effect. So you can see how like this is not a let's put ourselves in a box and move forward. The other way to get a sense of your skin type is to pay attention to how it looks and feels in response to using a mild facial cleanser. What you want to do is just wash your face with a very mild, basic, boring facial cleanser and wait 30 minutes. Don't put anything on the skin, just wait 30 minutes and see how it feels. If your skin feels perfectly fine doing nothing, like putting no moisturizer, using any skincare products, you wash your face with a mild cleanser, rinse it off, and you're like, good to go. 30 minutes later, you don't feel uncomfortable, you likely have oily skin. It's not a guarantee, but you likely have oily skin. If you feel uncomfortable in that 30 minutes, like the skin starts to feel dry, tight, fine wrinkles start to be more noticeable, welcome to the dry club. If you have combination skin, you could go either way, honestly. You could go either way. You may get to that 30-minute mark and be like, I could use a moisturizer, I could go without it. But let's say maybe by the end of the day, you're like, maybe I should have used a moisturizer today. I'm looking a little dry. For folks who are sensitive, washing the face with a mild cleanser, waiting 30 minutes and not doing anything, not putting a moisturizer on, your symptoms of sensitivity may be heightened. Because when you cleanse, you're invariably removing some of the lipid protection. People who have sensitive skin, they have a tendency to be really sensitive to things that come in contact, right? So after cleansing, if you're very sensitive and you don't put like a moisturizer on to replenish the skin barrier and you just let it hang out like that, you may find that you are even more sensitive. So many things can influence this. That's why, honestly, I am not really a huge fan of chasing down different skin types. Of course, certain products are marketed appropriately to people who have a tendency towards any of these 4 skin types. So I wouldn't say the marketing is complete rubbish. I'm actually a fan of the marketing in a lot of cases. But as a consumer, you have to understand that so many things are going to influence what your skin needs and responds to and benefits from on a given day-to-day basis. And again, that doesn't mean that you need to constantly be changing up your skincare routine. It doesn't mean that you constantly need to have an arsenal of products at your disposal to address the slightest little change in things. It's just, be aware that things can change from day to day. Things can change from season to season. And as you go through life stages, your skin needs will likely change. For women, as you go through menopause, the amounts of oils that your skin makes decline, the lipids in the skin, the production of those decline. So you have more of a tendency to lose water from your skin. Medications can influence your skin. If you start a new medication, you may find that your skin is more sensitive. You also may find that having underlying medical conditions influences your skin. Check out my videos, Skin Signs of Health Not to Miss. We go over a ton of skin signs of different diseases, different vitamin deficiencies. You need to check that playlist out. It is high yield information. Sleep definitely impacts our skin and how our skin reacts to things. If you are sleep deprived, your skin barrier is not able to properly recover. You may be more prone to dryness. On the flip side, however, if you are sleep deprived, it can rev up stress hormones that can lead to more oiliness for some people. Diet also has a huge influence, whether it be a dietary supplement or just the foods that you're eating in general. Some foods, highly processed, high glycemic foods, if that is the bulk of your diet, it really can contribute to excessive oiliness. If you are taking in high amounts of vitamin A supplements, that can dry out your skin. Or maybe you're taking a medication like isotretinoin or soriatane, which are vitamin A derivatives that are known to be very drying to the skin. For women who become pregnant, your skin type likely will change during pregnancy because of the hormones. A lot of people who have, a lot of women actually develop eczema during pregnancy. Then when they deliver, it might go away or it might persist longer. A lot of women develop acne in pregnancy. So you may have a skin condition, or you may just find that your skin overall is a lot more sensitive. I mean, hormones play a role for sure. But once you have a sense on where your skin tends to fall the majority of the time, at least in a given time period in your life, what kinds of approaches should you take to your skincare routine? All right, if you have oily skin, first of all, products that you put on your skin do not cause you to make more oil. There's not a moisturizer, there's not a cleanser, there's not a toner, there's not a family of ingredients that is actually going to make you oilier, because oil production from the sebaceous gland, it is governed by hormones and genetics. Putting products on your face has no influence on how that oil gland decides to make more oil. It doesn't. Where you can run into issues, however, is that if you have oily skin, some products are going to feel greasy on the skin as they admix with your background oiliness. And some products are going to make you look oilier because you have a baseline tendency towards oily skin, and certain products are very shiny and very greasy. So those are things that are not pleasing to people with oily skin. People who have a tendency towards oily skin, they often find that they like to cleanse their face twice a day. The evening time and then again in the morning, because they make oil and the following morning they wake up and their face looks shiny. They like to wash their face again in the morning. So if you're in the oily camp, you may find that you benefit from cleansing twice a day. If you're in the oily camp, you may also lean into a clay mask. Clay masks have clays in them, like bentonite, kaolin, zeolite. These clays absorb excess oil from the surface of the skin, degreasing the skin. You can do that in the morning. Take just a few minutes, and then once you rinse it off the skin, you may find that products go on more evenly, and that products are less likely to make you look oily and shiny. And if you're someone who has oily, acne-prone skin, removing some of that excess oil can help cut down on breakouts, because that sebum on the skin surface oxidizes and can be inflammatory and trigger more acne breakouts. Look for moisturizers that are labeled oil-free. They're going to feel more comfortable on your skin. It's not to say that you can't use non-oil-free moisturizers, that they're somehow going to make you oilier. Again, that's not possible. But people who have oily skin, they tend to find that the oil-free facial moisturizers tend to be more comfortable for them. They tend to have ingredients like dimethicone, which is more fast absorbing and can allow for good evaporation of sweat so that you don't feel oily and shiny. Don't avoid moisturizers though, just because you have oily skin, because you can develop a lot of irritation and dryness along with the oiliness. The two can occur together. So you don't want to dry out the skin. That can lead to oily, sensitive skin. When it comes to choosing a sunscreen, this is one where people who have oily skin really struggle to find a sunscreen that is cosmetically acceptable, because a lot of sunscreens, majority of them actually are pretty shiny, especially those in the US, because the active sunscreen ingredients, they need to be formulated in kind of an oily base in order to go into the formula properly, to properly protect your skin. So they often inevitably look greasy or shiny. My biggest suggestion is to look for sunscreens that are in a gel base and or have low molecular weight alcohol as part of their active ingredients, because this allows for a very quick, dry, non-greasy formula. And check out my recent video though on sunscreens for the face. I give a lot of options in that video. To those of you who have dry skin, you may be better suited to just wash your face once a day. And ideally, I always recommend doing the face wash at the end of the day to wash off not only cosmetic residue, but also any, hopefully remove burden of pollutants and things that can aggravate the skin. So definitely cleanse, but you may choose a mild cleanser. A real creamy one you may find is suitable to you. And you might want to just keep it to cleansing once a day, because every time you cleanse, it's gonna aggravate the issue of dryness for sure. After you cleanse and you rinse the cleanser off, moisturize right away. While the skin's still a bit damp, that really can help cut down on water loss from the skin that can occur with cleansing. And you may enjoy a richer moisturizer. If you have very dry skin too, you may just try using body moisturizer on your face, because most body moisturizers, their main differentiating factor from facial moisturizers is that they're a lot thicker. They may be petrolatum or mineral oil based, which for people who have oily skin, that's not comfortable. But if you have dry skin, you may find that that works like a dream. And great, you have one product that you can use from head to toe. Now, if you have dry skin, a lot of people are gonna, try and sell you on the need for a facial oil. And I say, unless you want to use a facial oil and you enjoy them, they're not actually particularly useful, in my opinion, for dry skin, because they don't really do a great job of reducing water loss out of the skin. They soften and smooth the skin, they can make it look glowy, but they don't really address the needs of dry skin. They don't really aid in barrier recovery. So for that reason, I find that oils by themselves for the purposes of dry skin are just not particularly useful. The one situation where oils are very helpful, in my opinion, is if you develop some flakiness, either because you have a background tendency towards dry skin, or maybe you overdid it with a skincare product and you have some dryness and flakiness. The last thing you want to do is pick away at that flakiness, because it's picking away at your moisture barrier and it's going to aggravate the dryness even further. So getting a lightweight facial oil and just massaging it there can actually really help soften and smooth down that flaky skin. And subsequently, moisturizers that you apply, they're going to go on a little bit better. Cosmetically, it's going to be better for you, because if you've ever tried to put like sunscreen or makeup over dry flaky stuff, it often is a mess. So that's one tip that I personally have found to be very useful for helping with flakiness. Just get a little lightweight facial oil and massage it there. It can really help cut down on the flakiness without agitating the skin barrier. Sunscreens, they are moisturizing. They're in a moisturizing base. They're gonna help reduce water loss from the skin. The sunscreen is also gonna help your dry skin by serving as a skin protectant and helping with barrier support. Combination skin is one where it's actually really tricky to make any sort of specific recommendation. And as a dermatologist, it's just like opening up Pandora's box whenever anyone says combination skin. It's like, what exactly are you dealing with if you have combination skin? A lot of things come to my mind. Are you dealing with something like seborrheic dermatitis, where you tend to have redness, flakiness, and oiliness, like in the brows, the forehead, sides of the nose, but maybe your background skin is dry? There are certain ingredients that address seborrheic dermatitis. I have videos all about that. Or maybe you've developed a contact dermatitis. This is something I run into a lot, actually, if I'm not careful with like salicylic acid face washes. I'll notice that I have a tendency towards oiliness in the T-zone. Maybe you could classify me as combination, I don't know. I have a tendency towards oiliness in the T-zone. I like using a salicylic acid face wash, but if I'm overzealous with a salicylic acid face wash, I don't rinse it off in total. It can end up collecting around my eyes and around the mouth, and I get these dry patches. My eyelids suddenly are like very dry and flaky, and I'm like, what's going on? You take a step back, you might think, oh, combination skin. Well, it's really just that the salicylic acid is not being used optimally, and it's leading to patches of dryness. And so rather than buying another product, just reduce the frequency of using that cleanser. Combination skin, as far as sunscreen, you may find that you like a lotion, lightweight but moisturizing. You may find that the gels are not quite meeting the moisturizing needs. Moving on to sensitive skin. If you have sensitive skin, you probably are going to want to only cleanse once a day. Because the more you cleanse, it's going to heighten the symptoms of sensitivity. And you want to stick to very mild, gentle, creamy cleansers. Keep your skincare routine really minimal. Don't try out a lot of exotic things. A lot of people can become very sensitive if they've been over exfoliating. So really critique your skincare routine. Am I using hydroxy acids? Maybe I could stop using that for a while, or back down on the frequency, see if the sensitivity improves. Am I using hot water to wash my face? That can actually really heighten sensitivity as well. And you may want to elect a cream cleanser, really, really mild, to minimize any barrier disruption. And lean into barrier creams anywhere where you have very, very sensitive skin, like the cheeks, for example. Sometimes using a barrier cream in those areas can really, really help mitigate the symptoms of sensitivity just by, reducing water loss from the skin. Like the La Roche-Posay Cicaplast is like a barrier cream in a sense for the face, and it works really well in this kind of spot-focused way for addressing areas where you may be having patchy dryness and sensitivity. It can really help a lot. Regardless of where you fall on this 4-part spectrum, don't fear the use of moisturizers. because again, they're not going to make you oilier, and they're going to be beneficial for really anyone in any of these conditions for addressing the needs of the skin barrier. Be really mindful of the frequency of cleansing. That's something that is going to change in terms of what your skin needs and benefits from. Even can change seasonally. You know, some people find that they can cleanse twice a day in the more humid months, but once it gets winter and dry, they need to back down to once a day. Do not fear sunscreen wherever you fall on the spectrum. I know it can be challenging to find one that you like, is cosmetically acceptable to you. And you know, some people with acne-prone skin, they do find that sunscreens, they're very sensitive to them, and they aggravate their acne. And that can really be a challenge. I encourage you to lean into those that are in more of a gel formula, which are a lot more fast absorbing. But again, you know, as I've said in a lot of my videos, sunscreen alone is not enough. Make sure you're reining in those other sun protective behaviors too, like hats. Be hypercritical of everything in your life whenever you notice that your skin is changing. Don't just jump to, oh, it must be my skincare, because a lot of times it's not. Skincare products are not always the problem, and they're not always the solution. So take a critical look at, am I going through menopause? Am I super stressed out? Am I not sleeping? Am I eating as well as I should be? Am I getting good exercise and managing my stress? Am I, overdoing it with the skincare products and drying out my skin? Just go through in your head all of the things in your life. Have there been any changes outside of your skincare routine? All right, y'all, this is a topic that for me personally, it's always like very hard to stay on topic, because it's so easy for me to go off on so many tangents. Because like I said, when you open up the Pandora's box with just the slightest bit of knowledge base about skin and different skin disorders, it becomes very hard to give anyone any recommendations on how exactly they should, pinpoint what the best skincare products are going to be for their skin type. At the end of the day, a lot of it for you as an individual is going to come down to just having a sense of what your skin needs, getting some familiarity with some basic products, and ideally sticking with those until something drastically changes and it's no longer working for you. But once you find products that you like and work well for you, stick with them. Don't let the market and the ever-changing product landscape tempt you to switch things up a lot, because that's really where you can run into a lot of issues, changing out the products too frequently, using too many, and all of that sort of thing. That being said, there are unicorns out there who can try out a lot of stuff and never have problems. I try out a lot of stuff, honestly, and I don't ever really run into too many issues, but I wouldn't recommend everybody go doing that or go down that path, because it can cause problems for you. Anyway, y'all, I hope this video was helpful. Didn't leave you even more confused than when you started. But if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.